FPS 201 to 206. Let's turn back time a little. While Schwartz, disguised as Jonah, was returning to Daikokuya with the slaves, let us see what happened to the members of Sasankwa who received the join request from the General Guild and the Margrave Drag Range, Frau, Mish, Yu, Melinda, and their colleagues Ophelia Drag Range and her knight Virginia Barenberg. Let's camp around here. Mish, please scout the surroundings. Yu and Melinda, start preparing food. Go it, Nyan. Sure. Leave it to me. Roger that. The group had left the forest city and headed for the mine labyrinth again. Frau has thought that if they left at sunrise tomorrow, they could enter the labyrinth by early morning. But, Frau, something is wrong. According to the report of Mish, there was little to no signs of beasts or monsters compared to their first pass. In that case, there was one possibility. Something was nearby that both animals and monsters were trying to avoid. Is it Drac Riders? Ophelia guessed. There's a possibility. However, just like the frontier knights are prohibited from entering the mountains without good reason, so are the Drac soldiers. Drac hasn't informed us about them entering the mountains. Moreover, it's our turn to clean up the mountain anyway. You're right, Virginia. Then, what could have happened? I'm going to increase the lookout tonight to 3 people in the rotation. Anything suspicious, let me know immediately. Frey determined the night watch policy. An existence that both animals and monsters were avoiding was wandering somewhere in the mountains. Judging by the surroundings, it was nearby, and a few hours later, they heard something. A continuous explosive sound that roared loudly throughout the mountain. So loud, one might have mistook it for a true dragon. What is that? This is the first time I've heard something like that. Ophelia and Virginia noticed first on their watch. This sound. Virginia heard Yu mutter, who was the third watch. Yu don't know. Have you heard those sounds before? I've heard something similar before this. It's a skill so accurate and unrivaled in long distance, difficult to see through and difficult to survive once being hit by it. What kind of skill is that? Wake everyone up. Indeed, I may have come here to the Devil's Mountain to track Nekoinagi, but I also have to investigate what is happening. Frau, Mish, and Melinda were asleep but woke up to the distant sound. What is going on? A fight. This sound. Is he fighting? No. He can't possibly be here all the way in Devil's Mountain. But Melinda, no matter who is fighting, we still need to investigate. Mish. It's not that far now. The labyrinth. No, it seems to have originated from Drum Fortress. Get ready to leave. While the 4 members of Sasankwa discussed, Virginia cleaned up the camp and lit a torch. There was some time before sunrise and the 6 people would have to share it. Led by Mish, they started to move to the source of the still echoing explosions. Shortly after the move, the 6 saw the early morning sky dyed red. The sky, which should have been dark, was illuminated from the opposite direction the sun should have rose from. They had a grasp of what that implied. Naturally, they increased their speed, ensuring their footsteps to be silent as they neared the area. The vegetation eventually thinned, giving way to a gravel wasteland. Somish hid behind a large rock. Drum Fortress. It's on fire. It's dark, so I can't see clearly, but there's a battle out front. Following Mish, Frau came with the rest of the group. Is it him? Yu muttered, but Ophelia had another opinion. The fortress wall has been demolished. Are they being attacked by a swarm of monsters? It seems like the battle is ongoing. They couldn't peer inside the fortress from their location, but it's obvious to them that the fortress was badly damaged. What is it, Frau? We should be the only one with permission to traverse the mountains, right? Indeed, we are. In order to keep this investigation and the labyrinth a secret, the Margrave had stopped other adventurers from hunting monsters. We have also advised the merchants from using the mountain road. Is there any other adventurer who received the same request as we did? Not that I know of. If there was, then my father would most likely know. After talking so far, Ophelia and Frau noticed the fortress had gone silent. Mish and the others had already noticed and were staring as well. Is the battle over? Ophelia, let's put that matter aside, for now. Yes, let's investigate what is really going on inside. =+=+=+=+. Standing before me was the adventurer party with their weapons out and beginning to chant their spells. I must have fought too flashily. Between the M202A1, the missiles, And the sentry turrets, the sound must have been loud. They may have came here due to that. No one to blame but myself. However, to meet them face to face like this, it's a bit too early. It's not him. I could hear Yu-san muttering. I'm curious, who is this he you've been mentioning? After the chanting was over and the spell was casted over their group, asked Yu. But Yu stared at me without answering. An acquaintance, but I can't talk about him in detail. Instead, Mish answered while keeping her eyes on me. It seemed they were still keeping their promise. Don't tell me that undead did all that by itself. There might have been more. Be careful. Yu is right, Mish. Watch for our surroundings. Other than that one, I have yet to smell another monster. Frey, an undead that could cause this much destruction on its own. It might be comparable to a gate guardian, or even a labyrinth master. Ophelia-sama, Frau-sama, there is no way we can defeat that undead on our own. But Virginia, what if we leave this guy alone here and it comes to drag range? If we don't defeat it here, it will definitely harm the people who live in drag range. Yeah, they're completely in battle mode. What to do now? My UMP only had 8 bullets with 1 spare mag left. I still had the silenced pistol with 2 spare mags. There were also 3 grenades for the grenade axe, but I had no intention to fight them in the first place. Maybe if I had some simulation bullets ready, but there was no time to switch. If battle broke out, it'd most likely end with dead on both sides. There was some distance between us. If I want to run, this would be the time. I tossed the M18 smoke grenade at Melinda, who was about to attack. Using the moment the smoke came out, I retreated back to the fortress behind me. What is this? Melinda, be careful. It might be a corrosive haze. I heard Frau Sound calling out. It was just colored smoke though. It's escaping. Ophelia-sama. It's too dangerous to go in alone. Only one light spot came after me. I tried to return to the mountains from behind and hide myself in the wilderness, but it was annoying to move. I stopped and looked back at who was chasing me. FPS 202. What do you intend to achieve by chasing me alone? Do you want to die? Not only did you destroy the drum fortress alone, you seem to understand our language. In any case, you have no place to escape to. Undead. The adventurer party had unexpectedly appeared near Drum Fortress, most likely due to the noise and smoke clouds. Ophelia's pale pink hair fluttered in the wind while it reflected the rising sunlight. She slowly pulled out her rapier from her waist. She stood proudly and truly looked like a Valkyrie. Faced with this much destruction, even in the face of inevitable death, she still stood before me. I wouldn't claim that I knew how she must have felt, but at least I understood that, as the daughter of Margrave Drag Range, she couldn't simply let an undead with enough power to destroy a border fortress alone to be left free to roam. I knew her strength because I have been observing them for a while as I followed them. If we fought at medium to long distances, I'd have the edge. But when it came to close quarters, I honestly doubt I could keep up with her. So, you can speak our language. Undead? Did you come from the labyrinth in the Devil's Mountain? What if I did? Nothing. I merely wanted to confirm something. Perhaps you stumbled upon humans who lived inside the labyrinth? Ah, indeed. I saw humans settling down on the 10th floor. I see. However, they were overrun by these soldiers. None survived. Ah, and you simply watched from the sidelines. Undead? Of course. Why would I need to interfere in the first place? This Jonah, the enemy of all that live. I held the grenade axe in my left hand, observing Ophelia's movement. In response, Ophelia raised her rapier as it was covered in fluttery hoarfrost. She began to slowly approach me. Jonah, fun, of course. Then, why are you here now? To preemptively strike them down, for they were trying to get down into the labyrinth that will soon become mine. An undead conquering a labyrinth? Just how crazy are you, undead dash? No, Jonah. With that, Ophelia moved in first to strike! At the same time as the piercing strike, the hoarfrosts that fluttered around the blade came flying as icicles around Pinky's size. At that instant, I grabbed the riot shield hidden beneath my cloak with my free right hand to defend myself. The attack was stronger than I expected. The shield's durability gauge fell quickly before it burst into particles of light. Her attacks didn't stop there, so I tried to restrain her by stretching my right arm to grapple her neck while at the same time, redirecting her rapier with the axe. But she dodged, even covering herself with a stab as she did so. This was bad. If this went on too long, the others would get here. The dots on the map had already started to move. They'd be here in a few minutes. Once they did, it'd be hard fought to escape. What awaits at the end would be just a full-blown fight. But right now, I would only have to take down Ophelia. I slid jump away from the attack. One side looked back at her. She brandished the rapier again. From my perspective, she might have used something opposite of Dot. My melee attack won't hit her if I made a mistake, so I approached in a way that I could defend myself reliably and swung my grenade axe with all my might. Tilde. Ophelia muttered something just as I swung my axe down. The hoarfrosts that floated around the blade gathered and formed a thin ice blade over the rapier. She used her now enlarged rapier to block my attack and prevent me from overpowering her with my enhanced body. But the result was within my expectation. Ophelia's feet were slightly buried in the ground due to receiving the full brunt of my power suit's strengthened axe swing. This means that her next action would be slightly delayed. I reached out to the PSS silenced pistol in my holster with my free hand. In response to my movement, Ophelia attempted to retreat back like she did just now. But, since her feet were lodged inside the soil, she ended up losing her balance. Right there, I took another step to close my distance with Ophelia, pushing my grenade axe against her grumbling posture. Wah! There were only our weapons, locked into each other, between our bodies. We were pushing at each other, but actually, I was using that to hide my pistol from Ophelia's sight. Pardon me, playtime is over. What are you? Ignoring Ophelia's words, I shot her thrice on her leg before disengaging and taking off. To escape, somebody jumped up from behind and over Ophelia, who was at the same time moaning in pain. When Virginia, who jumped over Ophelia, struck the ground with her wand, the land cracked in a pattern similar to that of a spider nest. Ophelia's armor, are you all right? Virginia stood like a shield in front of Ophelia, who was kneeling on her knee as she was shot through her left foot. I'm all right. There were 4 light dots just behind. I really don't have time anymore. Ophelia's unyielding eyes remained bolted at me. However, the injury she suffered won't allow her to move right away. As soon as I landed, I flew further back and made more distance, then disappeared from both Ophelia and Virginia's sight. The undead has escaped. How is Ophelia's armor? Why yes, Frau. I was stabbed by something, but otherwise all right. This wound. Just what did that undead use as a weapon? A one-handed hatchet. I couldn't see what hurt my leg, but it's probably a dirk or a dagger. I see. Did you hear anything when you were hurt? Excuse me? It was silent. No, I think I heard the sound of swishing air. I see. While keeping a distance from them, I made a big turn around what was the drum fortress, and ran through the wilderness at once and returned to the Devil's Mountains. Although their voices were heard halfway, it may have been wasteful to shoot through the legs without showing the firearms. They wouldn't think that the undead Jonah was the same person as Schwartz, but she might have guessed that the undead used a similar skill, the pedigree skill. Despite such concerns, I set my priority on returning to the royal capital and running through the wilderness towards the labyrinth of the mine. Switching the information that was displayed in my field of view on the way to the mini-map that was recorded by an GSR 9 V1 TUGS. What I saw on the small screen was the underground warehouse of Daikoku. I counted the number of dots wandering on the minimap as I continued running, checking whether Flick had successfully brought Cody in. 1 extra dot staying still at one end of the continental, the bedroom area, was probably Cody. In that case, all I had to do now was to return to the capital. My original plan was to move between my store in the capital and the Guardian room on the 10th floor of the mine labyrinth with the transfer circle. However, when I recalled Ophelia's gaze shining with such a strong will that I couldn't even miss it if I wanted to, recalling that gaze of hers, I can't afford to let the transfer circle that I installed in the labyrinth stay unguarded. Ophelia and her group would probably be forced to retreat back to the Forest City drag range first after witnessing the destruction of the Drum Fortress. But I have no idea what she will do next. She may just do as I expected, or instead choose to chase after Jonah right away. I don't want my transfer circle to be found if the latter happens. In the end I chose to take a safety measure. All the while taking note of the time while making my move, I recovered the transfer magic circle from the mine labyrinth and headed to the Forest City drag range. While watching the GPS reaction from Mish-san, I decided that it's safer to just choose the transfer office in drag range. Switching back from Jonah to Schwartz, I infiltrated the city without being noticed, then secretly transferred back to the capital, making sure that my passage was not registered by making use of the special permit I received from Chancellor Bergman. It took several days to return to Daikoku. Fortunately, I made sure to leave a sizable amount of food in the warehouse. Peter Aramito married a company's bento. But being trapped in a closed space like that basement without nowhere else to go isn't good for anyone. Setting up the transfer circle to Daikoku's second floor, I proceeded to do a seemingly wasteful very short distance transfer from the second floor to the basement. A curtain of light ran through the field of view, and a dim basement spread out in front of me. I looked around and first checked if there was a problem with the basement that I had been away from for a few days. Maybe they were saving light, so they kept the warehouse dark. Ah, Jonah-san, you're back. You're right. He's back. The remnants of the fugitive slave and the phantom thief Nekoinagi were silent as if they had forgotten to breathe when I suddenly appeared on the transfer circle. The only moving dots were only from the inside of the Continental. Then, two slave girls ran down with a loud voice breaking through the silence. However, perhaps because they realized about the air in the basement, their momentum diminished with each step they took, and in the end, they lined up in front of me with a slower movement than walking. I mean, the princess is here. Thank you very much. Save your gratitude, for I only act to fulfill my part of the deal. Now it is your turn to fulfill yours. While returning to the words of gratitude, my eyes were not directed at the slave girls, but to Coty and Flick who were standing behind them. I thought you were making things up when you said you made a deal with an undead. Now I can see that you truly did. Naya, pardon me for taking such an extreme measure, but back then, this was the only way I could think up to rescue Princess Courtine. Coty closed her eyes as she listened to Flick's words. Jonah, is that truly your name? Naya? Coty asked once she opened her eyes again. Her mannerism was completely different from what I remember when I met her back in the Pavilion of Tranquility. Princess Courtine, the 17th princess of the Kingdom of Drak. Why was the princess of a country so despised that the division commander of the fortress called her a beast slave? Also, why did she go up against slavery, which was one of the basic policies in Drak Kingdom, even to the point of helping fugitive slaves to liberate them? Once, the founding king of Kurtmaga Kingdom established a new country for the people suffering from slavery, abolishing it to the point that the word slave was erased from the entire nation. Unless one is willing to go that far, it won't disappear completely, both in the system and in people's minds. I don't know what Coty thought that she decided to help these fugitive slaves, but it has nothing to do with me. I was just an FPS game player when I fell into this world. Perhaps to be made into a labyrinth master of some unknown labyrinth. I was not sent here to become the savior of this world. I can't save everyone, nor am I an idiot who believes that I could. It's always simply I do what I can and only if I'm sure I can. Indeed, I am. My name is Courtine Ladrak. No, not anymore, it's simply Coty now. Naya. While saying so, Coty slowly approached me step by step. Only the light leaking from the Continental car was overflowing into the dim underground warehouse. The light illuminates Coty from behind, giving an impression that she has a glowing halo. If it weren't for my skeleton face with a white bone that wouldn't move, I might have exposed a stunned face that was overwhelmed by Coty's appearance. The fugitive slave men and women who had lived in the basement for several days, including the two slave girls, were quietly moving to the corner of the underground warehouse as if they were trying to get out of sight as me and Coty facing each other. Have you heard of the terms of my deal with Flick? Yes, I have. Naya. To be honest, I didn't believe him at first. But, I was indeed rescued, and I saw the drum fortress crumbling behind us as we made our escape. Naya Drak will temporarily lose their eyes on the Devil's Mountain after the fortress collapses. That's right, Naya. Otherwise, the presence of such a powerful undead in the Devil's Mountain cannot be ignored. The frontier knights of Forest City Drag Range will invade the mountain in an emergency response, leaving the Devil's Mountain, a buffer zone, to be temporarily under Kurtmaga's supervision. Then, they'll discover our secret hideout. Naya. Indeed, that place will be recognized as the living place for the people of Devil's Mountain, which does not belong to any country. And they have been making a living by mining the magic ore at the labyrinth. That is the scenario I wrote. Whether I was lucky or unlucky, I had an environment where things could easily go as I expected. But, it's not like things can go as expected all the time. First, the first obstacle, the drum fortress, was crushed. Battling Ophelia was unexpected, but I was able to inform the drag range side of my existence. Recalling Ophelia's gaze, I had no doubt that the frontier knight would definitely act. Regarding the phantom thief Nekoinagi, which was Ophelia's original target, I was originally intending to spread the false info to her via Schwartz, but I was unexpectedly able to tell her the lies as Jonah. Ophelia should consider that there was a high possibility that the Nekoinagi had been destroyed, and would prioritize the subjugation of Jonah. The second obstacle was to create a village in the Devil's Mountains, and it has to be pretty convincing either. The biggest problem is building the village itself. This depends on how quickly and long you can create a living environment. As of now, even if we want to, we cannot break the deal. Naya. We will follow the conditions you presented. The phantom thief Nekoinagi will dissolve, never to appear again. Naya. We will also stay in the village in the Devil's Mountain, and provide 50% of magic ores mined from the labyrinth to you. Good. Girim, can you build a village quickly with magic? Well, yeah, sure. But it'll be impossible to build a full village from scratch alone. There aren't enough hands and materials. However, we dwarves usually carve out a cave through the mountain for living space. That should be easier. A cave dwelling. That will also make it easier to defend. Very well, I shall provide you with what you need. After that, we exchanged opinions with Koti and Gilim about the preparation of the village, and confirmed that there were no missing items or problems. Food was still okay, but there was only one problem. A few days ago, he heard numerous footsteps and noises in the underground warehouse. The voice of a man seeking something, the voice of a woman rejoicing in something was echoing in a frenzied voice as if a demon beast feast was being held. Did it open on business days without me? It was true that Amy and Priscilla had been instructed in advance. They're allowed to open the shop during business days while I'm not available, as I was working as an explorer. I handed them the key with that intention, but probably because I had separated the key from the basement, none of them had come down here. I once again advised the fugitive slaves that I couldn't guarantee their life once they got out of the basement. Then I used the transfer magic circle to move upstairs, reverting my appearance back to Schwartz, entering Daikokuya to overcome the last obstacle. He should be here soon. The liaison that will report back to Chancellor Bergman. They should be monitoring Daikokuya in secret despite its irregular business day. And notice the footsteps walking here, not the footsteps of passers-by walking down the street, but the sound of footsteps that go to me on their own initiative. Looking at the source of that footstep, I saw Rami-san, the General Guild researcher, FPS 203, standing outside the store. I waited for a liaison from Lily of the Valley, who is watching Daikokuya, to contact Chancellor Bergman, but what appeared before me was an acquaintance instead. Rami-san. Rami-san was wearing a white shirt with a wide-open chest, trousers, basically a working woman's outfit, just like when I last saw her in the Fort City Burger. Schwartz, it's been a while. Are you surprised that it's not the usual man? The usual man. Rami-san certainly said that. This means that she knows who I was going to meet. In short, not in particular. I was more surprised to find out that Rami-san is a member of the Lily of the Valley. Hearing my reply, Rami-san looked stunned for a while before saying, "Let's walk a bit," and walked past Daikokuya. I simply nodded and followed suit. Many years ago, originally I was part of the Intelligence Guild. I belonged to a different clan from Lily of the Valley, but when I was stationed in the fort city of Baga, I was asked to be Ashley's watcher. Intelligence Guild. Maybe the same guild that sent me an invitation before. Foo-foo, I bet you're thinking about when a certain guild was trying to recruit you. No? Yes, that just crossed my mind. If you join Lily of the Valley, I have no doubt that our work will progress vastly. Just remember that there are 3 major intelligent clans in Kurtmaga. 3? Yes. The first is Lily of the Valley, a clan that works under the direction of the 2 chancellors of the Kingdom of Kurtmaga, and now I am also a member here. I was in another intelligence guild before then. While saying so, Rumi-san entwined her arm around my arm and leaned over. The third one, Shildshiana, the intelligence clan that belonged to the criminals of the Dark Guild. Many of the operatives have been captured. But even so, we still know nothing about its inner workings. Better be wary about them. Many aristocrats, including the ministers, are eyeing your business. Surely Shildshiana would as well. TL note, Horworthy Shildshiana var. Major, Horworthy Mli var. Major, you can Google it. Thank you. I'll be careful. So the Dark Guild actually has an intelligence clan. Well, just as there are places where people in various positions, such as adventurer clans, mercenaries, and commercial unions, gather, there are also places where people who wriggle in the dark gather. The clans that I have faced so far, the Thieves' Demon Lotus Unibus, the Assassination Clan Inju, and the Pirate Fleet Kaido, they're all coordinated the Dark Guild Cactus. In addition to that, the Intelligence Clan Shildshiana, the Intelligence Clan Lonisra that sent me an invitation was named after a vine that grows naturally in the mountains. In early summer, 2 tubular flowers would bloom, attached to the opposite leaves. The flower color with a sweet scent gradually changes from white to yellow. It is also known as honeysuckle. TL note, Lonisra japonica, and Shildshiana. This is almost an unfamiliar name, but I faintly remember the Liliaceae or other, a member of the genus Horworthia, which resembles aloe and cactus. A succulent plant that stores water inside its leaves and stems. One of them, Shildshiana, has leaves that radiate out like a rosette-shaped rose flower placed on the ground. It's a small succulent plant, but the best feature I remember was its nickname Overlord Castle Shildshiana. Even when I'm very close to you like this, you don't even react. Now that she mentioned it, I noticed for the first time that we were walking while holding hands and Rumi-san was snuggling up to me. I only noticed just now. Even so, you didn't even show any reaction. Never mind. Well, I should start working seriously, right? So did something happen? Yes. I'd like to meet Sir Bird as soon as possible, along with Sir Thesis and Sir Coot as well if possible. Sir Bird was the alias Chancellor Bergman used when visiting my shop. Similarly, Sir Thesis and Sir Coot were also aliases used by the Kingdom Treasury Secretary, Count Lloyd Teisen, and the Chief of the Central Knights and the Knights of the Kingdom, Count Ali Crude respectively. Sir Bird will make time if you want, but if the other 2 are also required to be present, I think it'll be difficult if you don't have an appropriate reason, right? How much does Rumi know about my link with Sir Bird? I haven't been informed about it in detail, and not that I need to know. I'm here just as a liaison to you. Of course, then tell Sir Bird that I may not be able to sell miracle water anymore. From Rumi-san's expression, it's obvious that she had no idea what was this miracle water I mentioned. But she still replied with I will before disappearing into the crowd. While seeing off Rumi-san, I followed the signs of the many dots that emerged on the map. While heading to the center of the royal capital, I searched for dots that might be tracking and monitoring my movements. Anything. I couldn't hear any suspicious sounds. Anyhow, I am now acquainted with someone who seems to be a member of Intelligence Clan. Like Rumi-san, there is V, Duke Baga's female escort. That perverted woman was able to disappear, and in that state she wouldn't be detected by the radar unless she made a sound. However, there are countermeasures. If I set my vision to flow mode, I can see where she is by looking at her body temperature. So I switched to flow mode and looked around, but still couldn't find any suspicious body temperature. Nothing to see at present. Oh, right when I thought so. I could hear sounds coming from the top of the roof behind me, from near the roof of the street shop. Looking back without making it obvious, I caught the source of the sound in the corner of my eyes. A person. The humanoid figure lightly jumped from the height of the third floor and walked here. Is the sound that I heard is his landing sound? He probably didn't think that I'm aware. Not that I feel any hostility. While walking slowly here, he wrapped around behind me. While chasing that movement in the corner of my field of vision, I waited for the next move. Schwartz-sama, Sir Bird is ready to see you. So it's the Lily of the Valley. Turning around while faking a surprised look, I told the liaison I used to see that I'll be going shortly, and started walking toward the royal palace. Didn't we decide that the reporting should be done in your store or through liaison? I went to the royal castle and was immediately sent to Chancellor Bergman's office. When the Chancellor saw my face, he quickly dismissed the woman who seemed to be his secretary, leaving only me and the Chancellor in the office. The Chancellor was seemingly reading something that looked like a report before I entered the room. He put his gold-rimmed round glasses on his nose and gently stroked his head, still slightly bald due to hard work, and turned his gaze toward me standing in front of the door. I came to the royal palace because there was a situation that I had to tell you immediately. Is it about Drum Fortress? So you already know. The report came in just a moment ago. The Chancellor tapped his hand on the report he just read. The information was sent to the royal capital as soon as I moved from the collapsed Drum Fortress. I don't know if the party was divided and the information was carried, or if there was a means of communication that I didn't know. What is more important is what was written in the report. I believe the report came from Sazanka and Ophelia's team. What do they write? We report that the Drum Fortress has been destroyed by a non-standard undead Jonah and lost its function. And we have given permission to move the Drag Range Frontier Knights to subdue Jonah, jointly with Margrave. The Chancellor presented me with the report he had in his hand and recounted the content as if he's reading it for me. He was willing to take it one step further and read the report. Of course, he may think that I couldn't read it properly just yet. Though even if I don't know the characters, the translated text would still automatically appear in my vision, so I'd have no trouble reading it. Indeed, the report that Chancellor Bergman read was correct. So, Schwartz, let's hear yours. Why are you still asking for my report when you have one already? No, he might have wanted to hear it from a different source, to hear what only I know. However, I have more people to report to before that. Daikokuya should be here. The door of the office was opened vigorously, and Count Ali Crude, advisor to the Knights of the Kingdom, rushed inside. Behind him, Count Lloyd Teisen, the Secretary of Treasury, could be seen, running out of breath. Both of them have clearly sprouts of new hairs growing on their heads compared to a few days ago. They were hiding it with a small hat, but the hat fell to the floor due to their running. I heard about it, Daikokuya. Is it true that miracle water can no longer be sold? Is it true that Daikokuya will be closed? Count Crude and Count Teisen came in and approached me as soon as possible, with two bright red faces lined up in front of me, opening their mouths wide and screaming such as why aren't they selling? Or if there isn't that, What is with there being no more miracle water? I haven't heard any of this. There is another red face incoming. It took about 30 minutes for the three heavyweights of Kurtmaga to regain their composure. Now we sat on the chairs, with Chancellor Bergman, Count Crude, and Count Teisen facing me beyond the table. Then, can we still buy miracle water without any problems? Right, as I said many times already, the materials needed to make hair growth products are in danger of being exhausted. However, with a little help from all three sides, not only for hair growth products, but for both parties as well, I think we can make a profitable transaction. Chancellor Bergman was looking at me while confirming that. The two counts are slurping the tea prepared by the secretary and chewing on the baked sweets with satisfied faces. So, what do you want for us? Count Crude, the advisor to the Knights of the Kingdom, placed the teacup on the table and stared at me with a keen eye, as if he was shooting through me, a total opposite of his smiling smile. First of all, I will tell you all the information that was not in the report from the Margrave of Drag Range. In my words, Count Crude turned his gaze to Chancellor Bergman. The Chancellor stood up with a breath and said, "This is it," and handed over the report from the Margrave of Drag Range to the Count. The expression of Count Crude changed again after looking through the report. One could see that the hand holding the report trembles and is so strong that the paper was nearly crushed. "Bergman, what on earth are you doing to the Sword Princess of Drag Range?" And he barked. He slammed the report on the table, and Count Crude changed his focus to Chancellor Bergman instead of me, asking her to look for something in the Devil's Mountain. "His Majesty has agreed to this." "What in the world are you looking for?" "It must be a labyrinth, isn't it?" Unlike the infuriated Count Crude, Count Eisen was relatively calm. He guessed the situation after reading the report himself. He didn't even move his eyes from the paper as well. "Indeed, there is a labyrinth in the Devil's Mountains as expected." "Right here." The Chancellor took out the topographical map of Devil's Mountain that I drew. "This map." The moment the map unfolded, Count Crude was stunned. His eyes cannot leave the map. "This map? Is it the work of that rumored map seller?" "Indeed it is, Teisen Dono. As matter of fact, Daikokuya is this map seller Schwartz you talk about." "Map seller Schwartz." It started with me drawing the map of Wolf Labyrinth with the help of the VMB system. Despite that, I don't actually sell maps that often, thus have no shop or name for the business. Apparently the name map seller Schwartz had become quite well known. I thought that the information was still circulating only among the investigators of the big company, but the truth was unknown. But was it spread enough to be remembered by the executives of national affairs? "I've heard of it. In fact, I've also seen the Wolf Labyrinth map. It was a really nicely drawn map." "Is Count Crude aware of it?" Back to the topic of labyrinth. "I sent the Sazankers and Ophelia to conquer this labyrinth. Ophelia also has her own reason to enter the Devil's Mountain." "Are you trying to conquer a labyrinth with just one party?" "You're being unreasonable as usual." "Unreasonable? Maybe. But I have also sent in another team other than Ophelia's. And I can guarantee this team's capability." "I see. But anyway, what is the relation between the labyrinth conquering, the collapse of Drum Fortress, and map seller Schwartz Daikokuya?" In the question of Count Eisen, all eyes gathered at me. The Chancellor didn't seem to be ready to explain anything. "In other words, it's up to me." "All right, what to say now?" "I shall explain. In order to conquer the labyrinth along with Ophelia Sama's team, at the behest of His Excellency Chancellor, I have sent someone from my clan Spark." "Spark? I have never heard of that clan before." "Of course, Your Excellency. Our clan is made up of very few people, and we rarely give out our clan name." "How many people have you sent?" "I think it'll take a considerable amount of talent and numbers to capture the completely undeveloped labyrinth." "Only one, Your Excellency." "One?" "Bergman." "Who did he send?" "That is not really important. It seems that Chancellor Bergman is still unwilling to reveal my identity. Only a few people, including the Chancellor and the King, know about me working as their covert." "Aside from information such as map seller Schwartz, the Chancellor seems to draw a clear line in the disclosure of information about me, including the truth of me being a magicless." "And even the unknown clan names, Spark, came out?" "Of course, because I only came up with it just now." "Even if I go to the Devil's Mountains and say that I'm doing business as a Daikokuya, from subduing the labyrinth to escorting Ophelia, the words are too unreliable." "The Black Mask Shaft, Your Excellency." "That Shaft? So he's actually a member of Spark? Then that sounds quite convincing." "Black Mask Shaft conquered the Wolf Labyrinth alone, and he also hunted down phantom thieves, then engaged in a flashy fight during the King's Festival. That Shaft is secretly escorting Ophelia and sending reports back here." "Based on his report, I drew this map. From his information, I can confirm that Drum Fortress has indeed been destroyed." It was a gambit to talk about the connection between Schwartz and Shaft. In order to increase the credibility of my words that I will speak from now on, I thought that it was necessary to support the actions of a clear and powerful person, that is Shaft. Shaft reported to me that he found two things in Devil's Mountain. One is the labyrinth, which we refer to as my labyrinth for convenience. "What's the other one?" The Chancellor returned to his office desk, urging me to continue as he clasped his fingers in front of him. "The other one is about people who hide and settle in the Devil's Mountain." "Come again?" "I've never heard of a village in the Devil's Mountains. That area is a buffer zone with the Drak Kingdom, and is not suitable for people to live in because monsters and demi-humans are frequently attracted to it. Then how? It is said that they protect themselves from the monsters by carving out the mountain surface and creating cave dwellings. They make their living by relying on the resources available on the mountain and dealing with the large caravans that travel between Kurtmaga and Drak Kingdom. I didn't know that people lived in that mountain range, but what does miracle water have to do with it? Of course there is. However, before we talk about that, I need to report on these people who were important to both countries. To both countries, as in Kurtmaga and Drak Kingdom? That's right, Your Excellency. Most of the people who settled in the Devil's Mountains escaped from the Kingdom of Drak. I have received a report saying that the Drak Kingdom's 17th Princess Courtine is also among these people. What? Speaking of which, the 17th Princess of Drak Kingdom is a beastkin. She's born to a mother of a regular town girl before the current king took the throne. Isn't it a problem that a member of the royal family of the Drak Kingdom is hiding in that area? Chancellor Bergman. This is already too much. Count Crude hit the table and raised his voice. Although the Kingdom of Drak has a strict policy on beast races, a royal family member is still one nonetheless, and if it is known that she hides in the Devil's Mountain, Drak Kingdom will surely field their soldiers in the mountains. The dragon riders had already entered the mountain and even invaded the labyrinth though. That's a problem. But why is the 17th princess hiding in the Devil's Mountains? Can you confirm that? It's been done. There are 16 people living in hiding, including the princess. 15 were fugitive slaves, and the 17th princess was helping them out. Is the princess denying the national policy? More importantly, what is that country doing? With their northern neighbor Bashburn Empire expanding in power, I don't think it's strange that the Kingdom of Drak will be targeted at any time. Count Eisen Shaft had reported that the Drak Kingdom is already in a negotiation with the Bashburn Empire and they have chosen to become a vassal state. This is the information I obtained from the dragon rider that I captured in the mine labyrinth. It is said that the Bashburn Empire, a great power in the far north, continues to expand its power, absorbing and merging neighboring countries one after another, while also taking measures that do not use force. Under such circumstances, the standing position of the 17th Princess Courtine was very delicate. Although seen low enough to be accused of being a beast slave to the Drak Kingdom, the Emperor of the Bashburn Empire, the man known as the Ice Wolf Emperor, is also a beastkin. It's obvious that he annexed the nation in peace, but demanded the beastkin princess in return. However, there's only one beastkin princess in Drak Kingdom. Therefore, in order to meet the demand of the Ice Wolf Emperor, it's important to find the 17th princess, who by that time had already gone missing in her effort to help fugitive slaves. But, all that is of no importance for the Kurtmaga Kingdom. The kingdom currently doesn't share a border with the Bashburn Empire. But it's unclear when the ever-expanding Bashburn Empire will become a neighbor. It would be a problem since even the Drak Kingdom could easily be made into a vassal state. If you explain the current situation surrounding the 17th princess of the Kingdom of Drak, and reconfirm the situation of the drum fortress that collapsed due to the sudden action of the undead Jonah, a story will naturally emerge. The Chancellor and the Counts were silently listening to my proposal, but their eyes are never silent. It seemed that they were scrutinizing the merits and demerits of my proposal to protect the hidden village of the Devil's Mountains and conceal the 17th princess to prevent the Bashburn Empire from annexing peacefully. Furthermore, I think they're trying to find out what I really mean by making this proposal. To be clear, I don't get much. The hidden village will be built from now on, but 40% of the mind magic ore will be delivered to the Kingdom of Kurtmaga. I will pay this from my share. In return, the Drag Range Frontier Knights will guard the area around the hidden village until the mine labyrinth is conquered and the monsters and demi-humans that live in the Devil's Mountains are wiped out. Guarding the Knights of the Frontiers will not be so difficult. On the face of it, it should be enough to set up a front base nearby to subdue Jonah. It also reduces the chances of the Drak Kingdom from becoming aware of the mine labyrinth, as there will be no need to send personnel to mine magic out from the labyrinth. We stand to lose very little. On the contrary, Getting a mine of magic ore is not a bad thing from a financial perspective. It's no different from the basic task of cleaning the Devil's Mountains by the Knights of the Frontiers. It's not a big burden to protect the villages, but it would take many times more effort to subdue the undead. About that, we can entrust this matter to Shaft. He'll be responsible for conquering the dungeon, but I will inform him to prioritize defeating the undead Jonah should he encounter it. With the help of Black Mask Shaft, this undead Jonah shouldn't be hard to deal with. The strict face of the Chancellor changed into laughter as he started talking to match my play. I'll talk to His Majesty and Zephanel. Treasury Secretary Tyson prepares a special budget for Devil's Mountain sweeping operation, and the Knights Advisor Crude should organize the emergency response of the Knights of the Frontiers, in case the Drak Kingdom act. Please report back to me afterward. And finally, the Chancellor glanced at me. So, Schwartz, what if we keep this village and the ore mining venture safe and sound? Yes, I think I can procure the ingredients necessary for the formulation without any problems. I will supply the hair growth agent and prepare it without running out. The three heavyweights nodded satisfactorily in response to the affirmation. FPS 204. The secret talk with the three heavyweights of the Kingdom of Kurtmaga in the office of Chancellor Bergman ended in a way that was convenient for me. Count Crude and Count Tyson had already left the room, and after talking with the Chancellor about the details, I was about to leave the room to start the next preparation. Wait, Schwartz. One last thing. I've accepted this proposal, but as I advised earlier, I don't want you to delve too deep into the kingdom's political affairs. Of course, Your Excellency. I made that proposal after weighing both of my wishes and this country's political stance. If I wanted to bring it into the Kingdom of Kurtmaga, this story would have flowed. The original plan was meant to keep it in the buffer zone of the Devil's Mountains. My wish, I don't really know what it was. Was it mercy for the fugitive slaves? Because I never want to see the tears of the girl I saw in the Southern Sea again? Or was it a mourning for those who were eaten by the ruthless reality on the lakeside of the mountains? Or all of these? I left the royal castle and returned to Daikokuya, confused by my uncertain feelings. On the way back to the store, I bought some miscellaneous goods that I needed from now on and prepared to return to the Devil's Mountains again. From here on, it's a race against time. Before the Order of the Knights of the Frontiers can come near the mine labyrinth, Coty's hidden village must already be completed. Returning to the underground warehouse in Jonah's form, I explained the situation to Coty and ordered him to wait for a few days. Of course, I haven't talked about the secret agreement with the Kurtmaga Kingdom, and it's unpleasant to give the implication that the undead and the kingdom are actually directly connected. Afterward, I used the Royal Capital's transfer circle to return to the Forest City drag range, then scale the Devil's Mountain to reach the mine labyrinth. Around here, maybe? Displaying the map of the surrounding area with the help of TSS, I measured the distance between the labyrinth and the nearest water source, in this case a lake. Then a mountainside to see which part is a suitable spot. Once I decided on a location, all I needed to do was start working. I summoned multiple gift boxes, then took out the materials and foods I bought at the Royal Capital, as well as the cheapest furniture I can buy on VMB. Finally, I took out the copy circle and deployed it. At the same time, I changed my avatar setting to Shaft, as from here on, it will be his turn to act. Schwartz won't be scouring the mountain. It would be Shaft instead. Jonah's turn was ending here, as there's very little benefit for me to continue masquerading as the undead. He'll be gone for good after this anyway. Right after everything was ready, the copy circle started glowing, and the next moment, the fugitive slaves and everyone that will work on the hidden village construction, including the dwarf Girim, emerged from the circle. Here is the Devil's Mountain. Who are you? And that guy, where is he? Seeing Black Masked Shaft at the other end of the transfer circle in Daikokuya basement instead of Jonah, Girim and the others understandably stood their ground in suspicion. I'm the mercenary Shaft, here as an escort until the work here is done. Then where is he? Do you mean that skeleton guy? I don't know. I wasn't hired to know. Instead, start working already. The Frontier Knights should be heading here as we speak. You need to turn this place into a hidden village before they find their way here. Got it. Damn, I don't know anymore, let's start working. Despite everything not making any sense, Giram called out to the men who had followed him to start picking up the mining tools in order to make a cave in the mountain wall. Whilst watching them work, I leaned my back into a tree nearby, staying alert of our surroundings. Giram's mining technique was brilliant. I couldn't tell whether it's because of skill or magic, but they dug down through the mountain surface fairly easily, as if the dirt and rocks were made of tofu. The men who transferred along with him acted as his assistants. Some were taking out the dirt and rocks he dug out while others were reinforcing the walls. Taking breaks in rotation, the construction work continued even past sundown. A group of kobolds appeared in the midst of that, but I quickly dispatched them. Well, that's about it for now. Around the time when the sun was about to rise, Giram finally stopped working. A cave, created by carving and digging through the mountain, was completed. From the outside, a short horizontal hole continues, and beyond that, a circular hall with a high ceiling and a meeting place for residents is created. Around the circumference, there are private rooms and shared rooms, as well as rooms around water such as toilets and kitchens. The floors and walls were magically hardened and tiled. The furniture that had been taken out was carried to each room, and the living environment was set up for the time being. A copy circle will be set up again in the circular hall to inform Koti and the rest who are waiting in Daikokuya basement that we are ready. The transfer circle in the basement would shine dimly once it's ready to use. But given the time, they should come in pretty soon. It's been prepared, Koti-sama. Giram, thank you Naya. As expected, your workmanship is Naya. Giram greeted Koti as she arrived with the remaining fugitive slaves. Her eyes scoured the interior of the cave until she inevitably looked toward me. Why is Shaft here Naya if it isn't Koti? It's been a while. As soon as I saw my face, Koti quivered. She quickly pinched her nose with her right hand. Does something smell so bad here for her? Way. Ish he here Naya? Wad kaband wit yona Naya? Why? Is he here? What happened to Jonah Naya? The little girls who were rubbing their sleepy eyes beside them looked up at Koti as she pinched her nose and raised a protest. Behind Koti, I saw the elf Flick and the cook Garrard, the only other two who could recognize me, just emerging from the copy circle. Hold your horses there. Does Koti-sama know this person? That man is Shaft, also known as the Black Mask Shaft, a mercenary capable of conquering a labyrinth solo. Flick gave me the introduction rather politely instead, while Koti kept glaring at me. No need to worry, I'm not your enemy at the moment. For now, I'm just an escort hired by someone we both are acquaintanced with. What? Why yes, that's right, Koti-sama. This person has been standing watch alone as an escort while we were working. Well, I didn't even break a sweat. The men who were working to build this cave dwelling tried to reassure Koti by explaining my work one after another. Listening to their story, I could see that the cautions of Koti and Flick were gradually released. Is he really not an enemy Naya? Aren't you still mad after last time Naya? Last time must have been when they tried to rob the labyrinth core. In the end the labyrinth core is back with me. It doesn't matter anymore. More than that, I have a letter from someone. For the sake of your own future, you should probably worry about that more than you do me. The letter that I had inside my overcoat was a statement that I decided after discussing with Chancellor Bergman. The sender's name is Daikokuya Schwartz, and the content is about how Daikokuya will take over the transaction of magic ore mined from the labyrinth in the future. A certain company in the forest city of Drag Range, which they had been secretly trading with until now, was sent to prison for guiding smugglers from other countries. In addition, for the time being to live here, it is necessary to live daily, such as setting up a front base of the Frontier Night in a nearby place and accepting merchants who come to trade daily necessities and food there. The notice that various things will be done via Daikokuya is written on the letter. At first glance, Koti and this group may seem to have gained autonomy to live in the Devil's Mountains, but the truth is that they have to deal directly with Kurtmaga Kingdom under the guise of Daikokuya. Koti might be dissatisfied with it, but crushing the fortress alone will not release the Devil's Mountain from the Drak Kingdom's influence. It's a given since the mountain was a buffer zone. It is difficult to avoid a conflict with the Kingdom of Drak and the Empire of Bashburn without monitoring and controlling the trends and establishing a system that can be kept in hand at any time. As soon as she regained her composure, Koti received the letter and read deeply into the content. The girl is smart. She glanced at the letter and at me alternatively, and seemed to grasp my exact meaning. All right Naya, I'll make sure everything goes as agreed. Are you sure, Koti-sama? It's many times better than having to return to our country. And if we expand here it should be possible for us to help more stragglers. That was the loophole. The letter I prepared has no mention about the fugitive slaves or the people who have escaped from the Drak Kingdom. This Devil's Mountains is not exactly the territory of Kurtmuga either. There is no reason to blame the invasion of non-combatants from the Drak Kingdom unless they cross the border. One piece of advice. Today, or tomorrow, the frontier knights of Drag Range City will be arriving here, and along with them, Ophelia Drag Range, who came to this mountain specifically to hunt the phantom thieves. Do not let her see you, since the phantom thief Nekoinagi is supposed to be annihilated in the labyrinth already. I see Naya. By the way, where did Jonah go Naya? He won't show up here anymore. It's just a coincidence that I was willing to take his request to escort this place. I have no shred of relation with that undead. That is all. Koti was awfully different today. Where did the holiness that she exhibited when I confronted her as Jonah in Daikokuya basement go to? It was the afternoon of that day that the frontier knights of Drag Range arrived at the hidden village. The response of the GPS transmitter attached to Mish-san is also close. The frontier knights and Sasankwa clan seem to be acting together to search for the unique first-class undead Jonah, whose species and rank are known. Count Crude, the knight's advisor, has instructed them to search the area before subduing the labyrinth. The cave-dwelling hidden village was named Yoram in consideration of the future. 3 frontier knights, the Drag Range branch of Daikokuya, and 4 unfamiliar men who claim to be the branch managers came to the Yoram. This Drag Range branch will support the future life of Yoram. While it uses Daikokuya name, the contents have nothing to do with me, and the merchant directly working for Count Taizan is supposed to take charge as the branch manager. The representative of Hiromi is the Dwarven Girim. If Koti or Flick were to be the representatives, it would not be possible to avoid getting caught in the event of meeting Ophelia. After watching Girim, who is in discussions with the branch manager and knights, I moved out to leave Yoram. Where are you going Naya? It was Koti who called me out. I thought she was hiding in the back room of Yoram to avoid the eyes of the frontier knights. But here she was already, without seemingly getting seen by anyone. With the frontier knights in here, my job is over. There is no reason for me to stay here anymore. So I should move on to the next job. Yes, I have the next job, the task of conquering the mine labyrinth. I'm not here just to help others. Oh of course Naya. I was wondering what to say after that, but Koti herself didn't seem to know what to say as well. I have nothing more to add. I've prepared a place for them. What comes next it's all up to them. If I would do anything else for them I guess conquering the labyrinth and thus making the Devil's Mountain a little safer may also count. Shashaft. The moment I turned around to continue my path toward the labyrinth, Koti called out to me once more. I'm sorry for the last time at the capital, and thank you for everything. Don't worry. Leap. I was trying to tell her not to worry about it, but Koti had already leapt away before I could finish. While seeing her leaping off, I exhaled and took the path to the mine labyrinth. One more thing to do. FPS 205. I'm currently inside the mine labyrinth, on the 28th floor. After leaving Yoram, I immediately headed to the labyrinth, used the transfer circle to directly go to the 10th floor, then continued from there. The gatekeeper on the 20th floor was a high-ranked kobold, gross kobold assassin, a slender, tall, demi-human wearing rags. Its large body belied its speed and agility, but after blinding it with an M84 flashbang and then shooting its legs, it was robbed of its mobility. Was an easy dispatch afterward. And here I am in my current location. The mine tunnel started from the 25th floor. In this field dungeon with a tunnel network expanding horizontally, Not only were the same lumps of magic ore as the upper layer, veins of iron ore, silver ore, and gold ore were buried here. The mine shaft was reinforced with wood intermittently. It's narrow with a low ceiling. Regular explorers would probably have some difficulties fighting here. On the contrary, this narrow hole with so little cover is ideal for firearms. What spawned in this level was no longer kobolds, but rather monsters made from inanimate objects, like stones or dirt, commonly known as a golem. I could hear their heavy footsteps even as I continued my path. There were 3 types of golem I've encountered so far: earth golem, stone golem, and the most troublesome iron golem. Judging from the weight of the footsteps, it might be either the stone golem or the iron golem, and an earth golem. I'm currently using Jonah's avatar set, with the phase rifle as my main weapon and UMP-45 as my secondary. I also carried the grenade axe as per usual, though I rarely used it as a melee weapon given that the golems are tough. Therefore, to fight against these golems I simply got down on one knee and aimed. The moment I saw a silhouette on the optic sight, most likely the golem's silhouette, I moved the muzzle accordingly. The golem lost its top half the moment I saw a flashing red beam, collapsing as the dissected part was still melting. After several tests, I found out that a fully charged shot from the phase rifle will kill the golem instantly regardless of its type. The earth golem though does not actually require a fully charged shot. I only needed to wait until the charge gauge reached 30%. I came at the center of the distorted and slushy humanoid shape and fire. The red beam discharge pierced through the earth golem body. The next thing that happened was its body started dissolving. Unlike the zombies and other undead, this golem would die if its certain body part suffers enough damage. It's also fairly easy to pinpoint since they have these lines that glow red with magic. The line, which glows red like the eyes, extends like a blood vessel throughout the golem's body, and the intensity of the light undulates as if it were beating. When the light goes out, it means that the golem has stopped functioning. While picking up the magic stone that remains after the golem sunk into the labyrinth, I checked the clean fountain reflected on the map. I am the one who has explored this labyrinth the most. There is no information below the level I advanced. In other words, I don't know if the clean fountain in front of me is the final safe area or whether the labyrinth continues further down. If it's the final safe area, then what lies after the gatekeeper room would be the labyrinth master chamber. While taking a meal break at the clean spring, summoned a sufficient amount of weapons and ammunition in case of a gatekeeper battle. However, my preparation ended up for naught. Arriving at the 29th floor, and then 30th floor, there was no sighting of the gatekeeper, let alone the labyrinth master. After the 30th floor was neither the labyrinth passageway or the tight mine shaft that it turned into once it became an open field. This is, a huge lake spreads out in front of me with no ground to step on. An underground lake. In a dim labyrinth, the underground lake is dimly shining. There is a suspicious purple fog on the lake, which obstructs the view other than the passage that extends in front of me, also obstructing distant view. However, the map shows a spider-web-shaped passage stretched over the lake. When I looked into the lake about 2 meters below the passage, I saw a glowing ore sinking in the water. I wanted to collect that ore, but a group of dots appeared on the map, another group and another one. These dots seem to be fishes, not. They're either fish-shaped monsters or fishmen. Perhaps this world's merman or mermaid. Information about fishmen has already been investigated at the museum. I didn't think there would be a chance to meet in such a place. Fishmen build nests in the sea or lake, and males and females live together to carry out breeding activities. Their staple food is human flesh, aiming at those who fish in the sea or lake, dragging their prey into the water and drowning the prey to death. But is this underground lake an open field section of the labyrinth? But a labyrinth can only make an open field section if there's similar land around it. In other words, there is an underground lake somewhere in the Devil's Mountains, but that doesn't matter. In order to get out of this section, I have to think about what to do in the event of an underwater battle. VMP's regular firearms have little underwater combat capability. When fired in the water, its attack power is reduced to 1/10, which is the specification of VMP. If I want to fight underwater, I need to prepare suitable equipment. Before the fisherman detected my presence, I activated the TSS, scrolled through the display rapidly, and moved the cursor at high speed to select what I needed. The particles of light converged and the black supply box was summoned. Inside was an assault rifle for underwater use, an APS spear gun. This gun is a special operations spear gun developed in the Soviet Union in the 1960s. The magazine can hold 26 5.56 by 40 mm MPS projectiles. Of course, it's usable above ground as well, but the grouping and recoil are quite horrendous, so players need to be very careful when handling it. Also, as VMB balancing, using it while above ground would reduce its firepower to only a tenth. But this spec isn't a big deal in this world. When it was a game, I couldn't bring 2 or more main weapons, but in reality, it's different. APS underwater rifle aside, I also set aside UMP-45 for the secondary arm, while the phase rifle is stored in the supply box. And one last thing. Since there might be an underwater fight, I also need to prepare an oxygen tank just in case I need to stay submerged for longer than expected. I took out the grappling hook. It's about the size of a small shotgun, and it's a specially equipped gun-shaped gadget with a cylindrical barrel. Just like a firearm, aim at the sight on the top of the barrel, pull the trigger, and the 3-pronged claw hook will be ejected with the rope and locked. If I pull the trigger again, the rope will be rewound this time and I can use it to pull myself out. This completes the preparation. I slowly followed the passage on the lake while monitoring the movement of the dots reflected on the map. The underground lake was huge. It turns out to be wider than the field dungeons above this level. I remember this size back at the Green Demon Labyrinth. The dots reflected on the map indicated that there is an enemy in the passage beyond the suspiciously floating purple fog. I tried switching to flow mode to see what's inside that fog, but to no avail, as the fog was apparently too cold that it covered any heat signature from being seen. From this distance, I normally should still be able to use the advantage of a firearm, their range, to make a one-sided attack, but now it's rather useless without being able to pinpoint my target. Then there's only one way to proceed. I carefully walked toward the end of the passage so as not to irritate the fish people in the lake. FPS 206. Kaiwa, Hawawa. The strange noise that the mermaids let out mingled with the singing voice of the mermaids. Aiming at the center of their body, where their humanoid upper body intersects with their fish tail lower body, with UMP-45 as they jumped out to the floor, I pulled the trigger. I could see 4 mermaids in front of me and 2 mermaids behind them. I tried aiming at the mermaids first while avoiding the mermaids to stop the singing, but the wriggling bodies of the 4 mermaids kept interfering with my aim. Damn, do I need to get rid of the frontliners first after all? A burst of 45 ACP struck the merman body. These fishmen I saw for the first time were similar to the Naga I met in the Snakehead Labyrinth. The upper body is a naked human body, and the lower body has a fish tail fin, which is as long as an eel. Naga had purple skin, but the fishmen had light blue skin. The wet hair that falls on their shoulders sticks to their face and skin, and their sick-looking face isn't the beautiful fairy tale mermaid that was often known in my previous world. Their screaming mouths were lined with sharp teeth. There was nothing princessly about their monstrous appearance. The mermaid's singing voice, which they sing behind the mermaids, gradually became inaudible as their frontliners fell. It's a song that inspires her companions or a requiem for explorers who became their prey. Becomes a magical song that echoes in the underground lake. Here we go again. As soon as I proceeded through this underground lake, the battle with the fishmen began. This magic song echoes every time. The magical song sung by the mermaid is not meant to attack. Every time this inaudible song echoes, water columns spouted from both sides of the passage, and a number of mermaids jumped up from the lake. The number is 3 and there are also 3 monsters accompanying the fishman. That is certainly Aquadrius, the giant salamander monster that I met in the open field section of Wolf Labyrinth. Aquadrius is over 2 meters long and has many red spots on its black and slimy body. The ones on the Wolf Labyrinth did not attack, and I could simply crush them with the vehicle I brought out, the LVTP-5. But this time the situation was different. The three aquadrias that jumped up all had shining ferocious red eyes. They let out a low roar and threatened with their sharp fangs exposed. It looks like they're not in a normal state. Saliva drips from between the fangs, and the red spots on the body are beating and thinning. The mermaid's magic song echoes in the underground lake. As if linked to it, the spots of Aquadrius emerge more deeply. Perhaps it's because of that song. This mermaid's song is so fucked up. It's forcing the mermans and Aquarius to attack recklessly. Goo-voo-oo. At the moment when I thought that, the Aquadrius groan became lower, and they rushed at me while curling up and rolling down a narrow passage. It's too narrow to do a slide jump, however. Too naive. With a powerful step as if to step through the rocky passage that stretches over the underground lake, the first one approaching me was knocked to the underground lake by swinging the riot shield on the left. For the second one that came at me in succession, I put the crosshairs of UMP-45 I held one-handed and pulled the trigger. The ringing gunshot, the empty cartridge case that was ejected, and the Aquadrius spewing fresh blood over it. The third one jumped over it. Its ferocious red eyes shone as it opened the sharp fangs-lined mouth. Following the momentum of my movement, I launched a roundhouse kick, knocking it back to the water. But I'm not finished yet. Along with the sound of the Aquadrius body breaking the water, I switched from sprinting to doing slide jumps, bypassing the mermans, landing behind the mermaids. The end. I pulled out the grenade axe. At the same time as the mermaid looked back, their heads flew off from their neck. Then I pointed the muzzle at the merman and pulled the trigger. 2 out of 3 mermans were engulfed by the grenade explosion. I quickly reloaded the UMP-45 and dispatched the single leftover. The underground lake was vast. In this area, which has no walls and is separated only by suspicious fog, it is not possible to move around with slide jumps and strafe jumps, which were the basic moves of VMB. As a result, I had to stand my ground and fight. But that's why firearms have a big advantage. In a place with good visibility, the shooting was started the moment the demon beast, subrace, was seen, and it was unilaterally excluded from the outside of the opponent's engagement distance. The place corresponding to the small room and the large room was a circular square. But since there is no wall, I can pick them off fairly easily. However, the field dungeon is not to be trifled with. Around the night after starting the capture of the underground lake, the monsters and demi-humans that appeared beyond several large rooms began to change. Like this cylindrical golem pillar that stands to block the passage. It didn't move unless it received damage or fought in close proximity, but .45 ACP bullets couldn't do the job. But when I thought to pull out the phase rifle to overcome the sturdiness, I was attacked by the real identity of the dots that had been swimming around the area, a horde of eel-like monsters called Gymna. The situation was not really in my favor. And now, I had to face the biggest crisis I've faced so far in this labyrinth. Gymna attacked by jumping out from the lake in an arc. If I avoid them, they just plunge into the lake again on the other side of the pathway. But what bothered me the most was when they leap, they also discharge electric shocks blasts. The electric blast would fill my field of vision with flashes. But that's nothing because the system would immediately react by adjusting the shading function. The problem comes if I get hit by any one of them. The electric shock numbs my muscle, slowing me down, and making me prone to get hit by the next attack. Since they're small-sized, their attack isn't particularly fatal on its own, but consecutive hits will eventually bring the target down. I got hit enough to make me fall to one knee, forcing me to eat the rest of the onslaught. The CBS was deployed, repelling most of the flock, but the part that could not be hidden by the shield was still attacked. These Gymnas have no limbs. Once repelled, they would wriggle their way back toward the body of water, then resume their assault. I need to stop this repetition. While looking at the durability value of CBS in the corner of the field of view, I took out the M67 frag grenade from the pouch on my waist, pulled out the pin and rolled it to the place where most of the Gymna would land on. 3 seconds later, a water column spouted from the lake with a dull explosion, and I saw many Gymnas get blown away. However, Their number is still too many while they're also too small to accurately shoot. I don't have any other option but to endure their attacks and pick them off. With grenades, each time a water column rose, the number of dots reflected on the map was greatly reduced. I had 4 M67s with me, and when I used up all of them, there were only a few dots remaining floating in the lake. I hadn't wiped them out completely. The moment I thought about getting rid of the rest from the isle, a shadow cast over my body. A golem pillar stood in front of me with his fist raised. This is bad. The durability of CBS has decreased considerably due to the gymnast assault. If I receive that stone fist, the durability value may drop to 0. If that were to happen, there would be a cooldown before I could deploy the shield again. Can't have that now. At the same time as I made the decision to avoid it, I did a slide jump backwards to suddenly leave the golem pillar's attack range, but there was no place to land. I was aware of that when I made the move. Considering the flight distance of the slide jump, it's almost impossible to not land on water with such a narrow passage. I without a doubt fell into water like a rock. Due to falling into water, my vision was dyed with white bubbles. Reaching around, I took out the small oxygen tank from my waist pouch and immediately used it. Jonah's avatar face had no eyes, so visibility was not hindered even underwater. As living beings, we have to secure air supply. But why does the body that consists of only bones still need to breathe? While laughing at my body that I couldn't understand, I picked up the APS spear gun that I slung on my back. They must have seen me falling into the water. Beyond the darkness of the bottom of the lake, a wriggling shadow begins to appear. There is a small amount of light source coming from the glowing, or it barely does anything to lit up the darkness, but with this small amount of light source, night vision mode should work. So I immediately switched so that I'm able to see in the dark for waving tails of mermen swimming their way toward me at high speed. They're real fast. I immediately fixed my posture and aimed at the incoming mermens, then fired. The 5.56 by 40 mm MPS bullet, which is a special ammunition, has a length of about 12 centimeters, and is shaped like a pencil, cut through the lake with a heavy firing sound. I shot the 4 approaching animals and checked the surroundings. The lake might be the territory of fishermen, but their weapon is nothing more than spears with harpoon-like barbs. The engagement distance is fundamentally different from me who handles firearms. On the map, I could see dots swimming some distance away from me, but there was no sign of them attacking anymore. My body was slowly sinking to the bottom of the lake due to the weight of firearms and ammunition. This underground lake is quite deep, and even if you look down, it's only darkness. I reloaded the APS spear gun and reached for the back of my waist. I picked up a gun-shaped gadget in the shape of a small shotgun, the grappling hook. When I aimed at the side of the passage extending above the water at the site and pulled the trigger, a rope with claws was ejected from the thick tubular barrel. The hook hit the side of the passage directly and at the same time fixed itself there. Once I confirmed that the hook had latched onto something, I pressed the trigger again. My sinking body suddenly changed direction, pulled toward where the hook was fixed on. When returning to the passage, the golem pillar stopped moving and returned to the pillar blocking the passage. How troublesome. I really must pass through this open field section as fast as possible. Taking out the phase rifle, I shot a huge hole through the golem pillar with a full charged shot, and continued on my path. The destination is visible. The map shows a square room, the clean fountain room, which means the gatekeeper room is also close by. Author's weapon list. Weapons used. H&K UMP-45, a submachine gun developed by H&K of Germany. Developed at the request of the United States Special Operations Command, SOCOM. The ammunition used is .45 ACP ammunition and the magazine has 25 ammunition. Riot shield. A circular shield with a diameter of about 50 centimeters, which is inferior in durability to ballistic shields. The setting is made of polycarbonate, and it is transparent except for the handle part, and visibility can be secured. Phase rifle. The shape is similar to a general ARF, but the color is all black. There is a part-to-loader energy pack at the bottom of the barrel, and a dedicated optical sight at the top. The capacity of the energy pack is 1000, You can charge up to 100 at a time, and when you pull the trigger, it consumes 90 energy and a full charge shot is fired. It is designed so that a low-power laser can be fired if at least 30 energies are charged. Grenade axe, a special firearm that looks like a combination of a flintlock grenade launcher and a one-handed axe. The ammunition uses a 40 by 46 mm grenade, which can be ejected while drawing a parabola up to 250 meters ahead, and can damage objects within a radius of 1 meter around the point of impact. Circle Barrier Shield, CBS, VMB Original Barrier Shield, with a deploy switch at the base of the left index finger. As long as energy continues, VMB can put up a circular shield-like barrier to prevent any attacks. The consumed energy is recovered by natural recovery over time or recovery items. M67 Fragmentation Grenade, a green pear-shaped grenade that explodes in 3 seconds after being thrown, can kill a fatal wound within a radius of 5 meters and debris inside within a radius of 15 meters. Due to the specifications of VMB, the scattered debris becomes light particles and disappears when it exceeds 15 meters. APS Spear Gun, a special operations spear gun developed in the Soviet Union in the 1960s. The magazine can hold 26 5.56 by 40 mm MPS projectiles. Of course, it's usable above ground as well, but the grouping and recoil are quite horrendous, so players need to be very careful when handling it. Also, as VMB balancing, using it while above ground would reduce its firepower to only a tenth. Grappling Hook, a specially equipped gun-shaped gadget with a tubular barrel that is about the size of a small shotgun. Aim at the sight on the top of the barrel like a firearm. If you pull the trigger, the 3-pronged claw hook will be ejected with the rope and locked. If you pull the trigger again, the rope will be rewound and the handle can be moved. Note that's all for now. I'm to wait for more.